out the truth. Who's watched The Matrix? Who's watched it as a documentary? Yeah. The regime uses all sorts of ways of disclosing things, and often they're done through trickery and deceit, and therefore they have no veracity, because the universe operates in truth and logic. You know? So if you start operating in deception, then you're not operating in tune with the universe. And now we're in what we call the Great Conjunction, the 12th cycle of 12 cycles. Those who choose not to operate in the way the universe operates will find that they're circulating through here yet once again. You live in a universe of infinite possibilities. Where is the restriction? So people set up these energy fields, if you like, these cults, these whatevers, because all they're doing is that either A, they've been duped into them, or two, that's what they have chosen. But now we're in this time of the 12th cycle, a cycle being about 26,500 years, a precession of the equinox. And now we're in the 12th cycle of 12 cycles, what we call the Great Conjunction. Each soul incarnate in a human vessel at this time is making a choice as to which waka they're going to board, you might put, whether they're going to evolve or not. Nobody else can make the choice for you. Each soul is making that choice. Choose well. It's a lot more fun. You know? And it's by the choices you make that are actually going to determine whether you are going to evolve to higher planes of physical realities or not, of ethereal realities or not. It's the choice each one makes. If you are allowing someone to dictate the choices you make, you are not living your life, you are living theirs. Okay? So it's really, really simple. All good solutions are. Intent creates reality. Live consciously. A lot of people are waking up, but a lot of people are running around in circles because there's all sorts of distractions going, because they are looking outside for that which is inherently within. Ask and you shall receive. You know? The thing to remember is that we are ascendants of great people who 200 years ago put aside all differences and came together to create something. But it will only manifest for those who enact it. Okay? Where the tupuna, the native, the rangatira, the native people of this land, the mana whenua of this land, granted our European, mostly European forebears, sanctuary here. But with that also came the dis-ease, the privateers, the greed, those who take what they greed rather than use what they need. And they have systematically gone about this territory and pillaged and plundered it. And they're stealing your children's, our children's birthright. And we have a responsibility as adults to see that doesn't happen. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already been done by the best brains in the world over 28 years. If you want to go out and reinvent it, then away you go. But I'd rather go with something that I know works. Because you can't get those brains that put that together, because it wasn't just the tupuna that put this together. They travelled. They were already great travellers, and they visited various orders of sovereigns all around the globe to put together a construct for this time now for those who wish to evolve. For those who choose not to, we wish you well on your journey. The choice is yours. Thy will be done. Ask and you shall receive. So it's about waking up and then becoming conscious. Every thought, every word, every action determines the reality. Hence, the old whakatauki we might say, by their deeds shall we know them, as by our deeds shall we be known. It's one of the codes of the sovereign. First code of the sovereign, firstly, honour thyself. Because if you do not look after yourself, if you do not honour yourself, then how can you put that out to others? There's potentially a couple of interpretations. As you possibly are aware with te reo, is the context determines generally its interpretation. This is why it's such an amazing language, because it's a language of tones. Okay, its vowel sounds are all tones. whereas English has become a language of words. So we have A, E, I, O, U, whereas in the reo we have I, O, U, A, E. Okay? So tones with intent. So waka putanga can be interpreted two ways. One, the waka of the new code is one potential interpretation. So a vessel of the new code of sovereign state of the new territory, but you can also have waka na, which is the emergence, like a flower blooming is one way it was described to me, the emergence of this new code. Oh, well, that's what we say, waka putanga, big waka, plenty of seats, paddle on everyone. No passengers here. And if you're feeling a little uncomfortable, it might be because you're sitting on your paddle and you haven't picked it up yet. Everybody has different skills and different things to offer. So our paddles come in various shapes and sizes, one might say. What is important is how we all operate in that unity. And it's no point waiting for those who are still sitting on the beach to see whether this works or not. The footprints in the evolutionary sands of humanity are not made by people sitting on their ass. No? It's by those who actually get up and do the mahi. And there's one thing that you will see, and others have said this too, when you stand and you live in your sovereign state and you stand in your sovereign state in your covenant with the Creator, there's two things that you see that are most prevalent. One, how many others are actually standing. Two, a whole bunch of bums pointed at you of people on their knees in subjugation to their fears. Because you've been indoctrinated to fear death, but it's not death that you fear. Humanity is afraid to live. There are more than enough resources in this physical plane for every man, woman and child to live an abundant life. Why are we not on them? But remember one thing, you are here in this time now because you chose to be here. So there's no point bitching and moaning about it, suck it up and get on with it. Because the sooner we all do, the sooner that we will create a physical environment worthy of our ascendants, as our forebears did for us. But you can have the best tool in the house, but if you don't know how to use it, and you don't even pick it up to use, it just sits there. Yeah, intents create... How this is basic, physical universe, ethereal universe. Intents create realities. We can have a conversation like this, or we could have a shouting match. The choice each of us makes determines that reality, and it can change as quick as that. Because here in this physical form, you're experiencing emotion. Okay? Because emotion is what gives colour, if you like, to this physical world. So intent, as has been well proven, humanity has the ability to change the crystalline structure of water with intent. And therein lies the solution. Okay? There are only two species in the physical realm that can tone with conscious intent. And one is humanity, and the other is the crustaceans, the whales and the dolphins. Also, I might add, are the only two species in the physical realm that copulate for enjoyment and not just for procreation. Thank goodness. It's living consciously, particularly in this time, it's living consciously. Every time you come into contact with water, which is all the time, I breathe out, you breathe in. I am you, you are me. This is about living consciously with your intent. Okay? Intent creates the reality. Intent changes the crystalline structure of water. Masuamoto, Secret Life of Water, proves this time and time again. You keep telling a child that that child is stupid, you will change the crystalline structure in that child, and that child will be stupid. Because you have, particularly in their formative years, the first 7 years, you have programmed them. All right? Our role as parents, because all we do as parents is put the ingredients together to create the physical vessel for the soul to incarnate into the physical realm. This is why our children look like us. This is why, they say you should look like your father, and if you don't, why you should. It's called genetics. There's a lot of people want to muck around with it. So intent creates reality, so it's about living consciously. Where you dwell is where you reside. If you're spending a lot of your time, a lot of your thought processes, a lot of your time and energy dwelling on the problem, then you are helping create that problem. That doesn't mean to say that you ignore it and it'll all go away. That's all that peace, love, and butterflies carry on. It's being consciously aware. Things come to our awareness. It's, are we going to give it energy or not? Where thought goes, energy flows. So I just hold an awareness of what's going around. I don't get involved in a lot of stuff with what's happening overseas. I know that there's shit going over in Russia and Ukraine, and I know that it's all not what it's talked about. That's a different reality. My focus is here now, and doing what we're doing now, because what was gifted to us, these taonga that were gifted to us by our forebears, can only work when we enact them. And to me, that's the key. And what we have here resonates around the world, because that is New Tereni, the new territory. You heard of the New World Order, or those of us that have been in this game for a while, like lifetimes, it's the Old World Disorder. What was set up by our tupuna under the proclamation of sovereign state was the true world order. So those who live in the truth of the matter. This is why the tupuna in the 1835 proclamation said, and we call upon foreign councils to clear their water and join with us. Okay, because they had already made that commitment, that covenant. So every thought, every word, every action, you either purify or putrefy. The choice is yours. And that contamination spreads. So all we're dealing with here is not bad people. We're dealing with people who have gone bad because of this contamination that spreads through the water, the crystalline structure. So as you go about your life, wish things well. Here's a little exercise you might like to try. On the first day of the month, oh, that's coming up soon, isn't it? First day of month. Consciously interact with some living thing that you wouldn't normally interact with and wish it well. Thank you. Gratitude is one of the greatest changes of the crystalline structure of water. As you walk past somebody in the street, just consciously say, I wish you well. Because that's another soul incarnate in a human vessel on its journey. This is what enlightenment's about. You enlighten the journey of the soul through the physical realm. When you move back into the ethereal plane, when you rocket, your soul rockets out of this mortal coil it's inhabited, and you're now back in the ethereal plane. They made me. Just don't wash, You always have the choice. You always make a choice. Now, a lot of people are given the idea that they do not have a choice, and that's a very dangerous space to be in. 1840 Te Tiriti put in place. 1845 we're straight away into the land wars, what we call the land wars, which were orchestrated wars created primarily by the New Zealand Company through the New South Wales Company, which seems to go right back to the City of London, which even Queen Elizabeth asked permission to enter. If you're not aware of that, then there's a bit of homework for you about the City of London. So they orchestrated the land wars because they could not buy land. Even Victoria could not buy land. It's a misconception. In the Te Tiriti Waitangi Article 2, it actually says wahi winawa, which is something placed upon the land. So it's titles of usage. Because our forebears were much too smart to start selling land off. You can't sell that which you do not, which you don't own. You cannot own that which you have not created. So when we talk about the hapu owning the land, what they actually own is they own the responsibility of the kaitiakitanga, the preservation and the management of the resources, of holding the harmony in that land, and enhancing that for the coming generations. So, of course, what happened with the land wars and the various hit squads going and being sent out to take out various signatories of the documents, because it is the tupuna and the mana whenua that hold the ancestral right to the whenua. What ended up happening was that as they passed on, is that proclamation of continuing enactment didn't happen. And so the constitutional order and the sovereign order went into abeyance. Okay? People stopped gathering at Waitangi in the autumn of the year as prescribed in the document. As many of you will be aware, if you've ever been on a committee, you must gather at least once a year to hold that standing in the legal arena. Well, to hold your standing as a constitution, internationally recognised constitution, you must gather at least once a year. Now, our tupuna laid that down as in the autumn, which made really good sense. Because in the autumn, it's the end of the harvest. And it's before the winter weather is set in, and go back nearly 200 years, or 180 odd years ago, and you had waka and waiwais. That was your means of travel, boat or walk, or horse if you were really lucky. So autumn was the ideal time. It was also the time of the seed exchange, not just vegetable seeds, I might add. Because that was when a lot of these connections of these arranged marriages happened. So what was happening with a lot of people were going up to Waitangi on October the 28th, which is a celebratory day. Well, that's the spring. And if anybody's a gardener, you know that that's your busiest time of the year. So you're not going to spend a month walking from one place up to another right in the middle of your busy growing time, because if you don't plant the kai, empty puku next year. So this is how things get changed over time. So what we did was we read the document. I mean, this was like, I've come across people who have researched the document for like 50 years plus, but still we're not gathering in autumn not gathering at Waitangi in the autumn of the year. Still saw it as a declaration of independence without even taking the next logical step of who were the tupuna declaring themselves independent from. So what we did was, having that knowledge of what it was and how things operated, and particularly spending a lot of time talking with the old folk, pretty much all past now over the last 10 years, and what they remember from growing up at their grandparents' knee, of what they talked about. We just put in plan what it seemed like the tupuna put in place for us to put in plan. And that was, we proclaimed ourselves a sovereign state. We did that as hapu, because that's where the authority lies, with hapu. Ko te wakamingia is the constitutional order, the sovereign order is only a think tank. Ko te wakamingia cannot make determinations over hapu, because the hapu are the authority. This is why the Crown brought in iwi and called that the tribe, and called hapu the sub-tribe. Why? It was to diminish the capacity of the hapu, and was to create a commercial construct that the pirates could now negotiate with another commercial construct, a creature of statute, in order to do all these settlements, none of which have any lawful veracity for a start, because you've got an entity that has no even constitution here, and actually correct terms would be referred to as a belligerent occupier, right? Who created another commercial entity, a creature of statute, they could do this negotiation for settlement with, so that they could legally take everything that they'd unlawfully flogged over the years. I mean, we had a classic situation. Yesterday we were talking about a rail line that's been running over a hapu's whenua since 1862, shifting thousands and thousands of tonnage of goods going offshore, millions of dollars worth, and the hapu has never received 1 cent for that railway being in their country. Because that's what every rohi is. It's a country in its own right. This was probably one of the best, most brilliant systems I've ever come across. In all the years that I've researched these things, many of the lifetimes I've lived in too, for that matter, how this was put together and put over the 28 years is astounding, actually, when you start to get more an understanding with it. So having this understanding, in 2015, we had 3 hapu who had proclaimed their ancestral right and proclaimed themselves a sovereign state. We gathered at Waitangi, not at Titi Marae, but in Waitangi. It wasn't specific exactly which part in Waitangi you gathered in. We gathered at Waitangi, and on May the 22nd in 2015, we remembered and reinstated Hei waka pūtanga o te rangatiratanga ni te reini, and remembered and reinstated the sovereign order and the constitutional order. And in 2016, we promulgated that. In other words, we spoke that publicly and we published and proclaimed the remembering. When you take something apart, you dismember it. You know, we're all members of a society. You know, when you bring something back together, you remember it. And that's what each soul is doing here right now, is remembering who they are. Do away with what you are. Anyway, we remembered and reinstated that. 2016, we remembered and reinstated by public proclamation. We served that upon the public servants, our reinstatement of the sovereign order and the constitutional order, being ko te wakabingi o ngā hapu o Nutireni. And then as a courtesy, so we enacted our rule of law. We had remembered our constitutional order. We enacted our rule of law. We gathered together at Waitangi in the autumn of the year, acknowledging the Creator, acknowledging Eo, acknowledging our tupuna, and acknowledging that we were gathered there as a sovereign order, as a constitutional order in covenant with the Creator. We reinstated that. What was interesting was, as a courtesy, we sent a copy of our reinstatement and our proclamation of standing over to Queen Elizabeth II, saying that we were now in order. Having remembered and reinstated our constitutional order, and could she please place her realm in order? Because it appeared to be not. Now, what was interesting with that was very soon after that was England, not the United Kingdom, because we are not talking with the Queen of the United Kingdom, we are talking with Elizabeth, Queen of England, because the agreement was done with Victoria. Ko Victoria i te kuinia ingarangi. Victoria in her capacity as Queen of England, not Queen of the United Kingdom. Different crown, you might say. So we informed Elizabeth that we were now in order and requested honourably and politely and courteously that she place her realm in order, because we knew it was not. And one of those communications went through her Lord Chancellor, who's second highest in Elizabeth's administration, a gentleman by the name of Michael Gove. Now, what was interesting was, for like 6 months of that happening, was England started Brexit, where England started withdrawing itself from the European Union, not the United Kingdom, England. We're not making the claim that it was our documentation that did that. What we are noticing and noting is the synchronicities, because England could not stay in the European Union and uphold te tiriti o Waitangi. First in time, best in law. Probably one of the oldest maxims going. Okay? So 1840 te tiriti, and because in our proclamation we had also proclaimed our honouring and upholding of te tiriti o Waitangi. Which just brings to mind, has anybody heard of the English version? There isn't one. It's a deception. There is no English version of te tiriti. There is only te tiriti.